Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me today as we talk again about the 992 generation GT3. So I'm going to link my previous video below in the description where we talked about the downward trend of the price of this car. And we looked at some graphs. Best thing to do is to just go to that previous video. That kind of ended about here, but now there is some stuff that's come to light, and we'll talk about the stuff that's come to light is five new auctions that we'll talk about in detail today. One of them is down here, okay, but the next one is up here. Now, how can that happen? Let's talk about this down one first, because I feel like that one can kind of be explained a little easier. This was an absolutely beautiful car. It is a PDK winged car in silver, which normally would be kind of wouldn't get the best premium over MSRP, just because PDK and winged cars are usually around, on average, about 30% over MSRP versus manual and touring cars are 30%, 37% over MSRP. Now, this car had 7,000 miles on it. It was in New York. Some beautiful photos by this gentleman that listed it. Couple of things that didn't worked against this car. The first thing was it had been in an absolutely very, very, very minor accident. It was the front bumper, a couple of pieces in the front, and the guy he actually posted photos of the damage. It was a joke how small the damage was. I'll show you. There it is. That's all the damage. Okay, so this is the kind of damage that, honestly, if it happened to your car, you may not even fix it. You certainly wouldn't think about reporting it to the insurance company. Well, unfortunately, there was some bystander that reported the accident, and then the accident ended up on the record for the car. And I'm not saying it's unfortunate, because I think the right thing to do would be to have reported that. But now that it's in the Carfax and everything like that, the value of the car is going to get affected. And it's kind of a textbook example of how a Carfax record can affect the value of a car. So again, beautiful car, went for 220, lucky new buyer. That's a great price. And I'm sure they're very happy with it. This was an absolutely gorgeous car. But now, what about this other ridiculous monstrosity up here? This guy that went to $340,000 for a 992 GT3. Okay, this wasn't some other car. Okay, let me show you why that happened. First of all, it was a no reserve auction. Okay, that is a really great idea. Second of all, the spec on this car. Now, we always make fun of that word spec. It's like everybody sees the same car and like, oh, great spec, great spec. And literally every single auction that I've ever seen, someone has commented great spec, right? So it's kind of a meaningless thing to say, except for when it really is a great spec. And I can tell you unequivocally that this spec was the reason that this thing went astronomically high. British Racing Green, touring 6-speed, with a tan leather interior, which is called Cognac exclusive manufacturer leather upholstery. And we'll take a look at that in a second. And it has the neodyme satin finished wheels, which absolutely look insanely nice on this car. So let's take a look at some of these photos together. I mean, this may be one of the most beautiful cars ever. And this guy just spec'd it absolutely perfectly. So it's like a textbook how to spec a GT3 for resale. I mean, someone sitting in staring at this car in their driveway right now, or in their garage, or hopefully driving it, and just breathless every day. This thing is absolutely gorgeous. Here, let's skip forward to some of the upholstery photos. And this car had 1,000 miles on it. It had a couple of chips, like rock chips in the paint. It doesn't have ceramic brakes. I mean, how the heck, right? Look at this leather. It is just gorgeous against that green and the black. Yeah, there you go. That's the photo right there for the interior, or that one even. Just a beautiful car. There's no two ways about it. That is a gorgeous car. But the MSRP on this car was pretty high, and really the biggest reason for that is the paint to sample, which cost $12,800, and the leather interior, which cost a whopping $15,000. The car doesn't really have many other options. It's got deviated stitching, has the front axle lift, and that's about it. I mean, some of these other things, the neodyne wheels cost $1,290, which is a good deal, I think. The guy just spec'd it perfectly. If you're going to order a GT3 and you're considered with resale, and the Porsche's giving you an allocation, just go to this link right here and copy and paste this into your order sheet is what you want to do. I don't care if you're paying a $213,820 price tag. It's obviously worth it, because the resale on this car went to $340,000. That's insane. 233 comments, basically all saying great spec, great spec, great spec, great spec. Oh my God, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. So the values would seem maybe on the decline, but not really, given the recent sales. So there was a couple more sales. There was one at 35% over, the one we saw at 59. There's a 26% over. This is a touring PDK car in California, almost no miles, and yeah, I guess 26% over. That was kind of right where we drew the line to turn it red last time. That's still a pretty high premium. And then the 31% over, which was the one today. And I want to talk about the one today because it didn't actually complete. And this was this car, another British green, on its way to potentially going to where that previous car was. Not as great of a spec, because even though it was the right color exterior, it didn't have the wheels, it didn't have the interior. It had a pretty high price tag. It doesn't have PCCB. Let's look at the options on this car. The interior is kind of rather boring, kind of all black. The total MSRP for this car was $210, which is quite high. That's usually a pretty well optioned car. Most of that though, I suspect, is just because of the paint color. Now, what happened with this car? Why was it withdrawn? You don't see that very often on Bring a Trailer. Withdrawn. That's not something you normally see. Well, this is what happened. It's in the comments. If you're interested, you can go read it. But right about here, Bring a Trailer kind of tells you what happened. And essentially, and the seller does as well. It turns out the seller was selling it on behalf of a client. They put it up for auction here, and apparently the Porsche dealer he had bought it from, since it was a brand new, he picked it up essentially, it had 198 miles. That's basically delivery miles plus like a drive to the place where you took the photos or whatnot. So the Porsche dealer threatened the owner that if they sell this car today on Bring a Trailer, that they're going to lose, they're not going to get any future allocations. And dealers can do this. And the owner, I guess, got scared and requested that the car gets pulled. That's the story anyway. I'm just going to choose to believe it. But regardless, this car went all the way up to 280,000. Wow, 280,000. I guess I marked that wrong. So 280,000, which basically makes it 33% over MSRP. Now, again, this is the perfect color. It's the perfect transmission with the perfect body. It is going to get a higher percent over MSRP just because of those things based on all the data that we've collected. And, you know, it is what it is. Now, a couple other things. Again, I said I was skipping over something I really want to talk about. One thing people don't think about very much when they're looking at analyzing auctions here, especially on Bring a Trailer, is clicking over here on the seller. Okay. Now I'm going to click here and you see this is a seller that's been active on Bring a Trailer for a very long time. Okay. Well, very long, you know, he's got a lot of cars, okay, and some really nice ones. By the way, I love this this 21 window deluxe from 1966. He's got a couple other Porsches, you know, one sold for 385. $776,000 sale of a what the heck is that? Oh, not the 2011 GT2 RS. Wow, I didn't realize this went up that high. That is an insane price. So when people are bidding on these cars, they click on the seller because when they're spending $200,000-$300,000, they want to make sure this is a reputable person. Okay. Now, that's another place where this person suffered a bit. Okay. Not only did it have an accident, which the guy disclosed, but when you clicked on his name, you know, there was nothing else. It was just this one car that he was selling. That will count against you. And I've noticed that, and I haven't bothered going back through all of these listings and seeing if this was a seller of like 2 or 3 or more cars or just one. But I can tell you, just based on my observations, just based on everything I've ever clicked on, and I've been looking at these cars on Bring a Trailer as much as anyone else. Okay, if not, I'm probably in the top 1 percentile for obsessing over this data at this moment. And I can tell you that the seller really matters. Okay, there's a couple of sellers that are very well recognized. People recognize them by the very first photo on the listing. Okay, just because, you know, maybe they're using the same type of photography or same type of backgrounds and stuff. People are very, very familiar with these sellers, and they're willing to give these good sellers on Bring a Trailer a lot of credibility out of the box. So the guy comes out, no one questions his stuff. Okay. New guy comes out, everyone's questioning everything. People will destroy a listing in comments all the time when they don't recognize the seller. So I don't know what that means to you, but to me, it means, you know, if I had the option of selling my car and Bring a Trailer myself, or giving it to a local dealer who's got a really good reputation of Bring a Trailer and maybe paying the guy a few percent, like, you know, 2-3% on just for the you know, I guess a commission of some kind, then I would probably go ahead and do that because I feel like it would be worth it. Plus, it's always nice to have that kind of layer of separation between you and a sale anyway, because, you know, once you sell a car, you want to be done with it. Anyway, that's what I'm seeing, guys. But there is one other car I want to talk about, and that is a car that sold, well, it was on Car Market. I don't know if you're familiar with this site. This is basically a Bring a Trailer type of site for mostly Porsches. That's why it's called Car. But there is tons of other non-Porsche cars on here, like this Toyota 4Runner and this, you know, and this Audi S4. There's other cars on here, but if you want to see their auctions, you just go to auctions, you hit live auctions, and you'll see their auctions. Now, it's a little strange what happened with this car. This car sold on Cars and Bids last September. And the way I found that out, actually, and you should always do this if you're considering bidding on anything, always Google search the VIN number. And Google searched the VIN number. Sure enough, the first thing that popped up was the same exact car from Cars and Bids, and I'm like, that's a little strange. This is only from September 15th of 2022. That's only 6-7 months ago. What gives, right? Immediately, kind of your flags go up. And I look at the mileage, 6,500. I come back up here, basically 8,500. So this new guy put 2,000 miles on it and is selling it. But then I look at his Carfax, which there was no link to, by the way. That's another red flag for me, but not a big deal. And it still shows one owner on his Carfax. Okay. So that kind of threw me off a bit. It did say this Carfax is available as of 3/28. So it is a recent Carfax. It's after that sale. Still says one owner. That's what threw me off. So in the comments, we determined that this guy, this new seller, is a dealer who's selling it. He bought it from Cars and Bid, drove it himself for a bit, and then decided to sell it. It was legit. I talked to the folks at P Car Market, totally legit. This car didn't sell. It actually bid up to $213,000. There was another offer after the fact at 215, but the guy wants like 235. Yeah, actually, it's right here. 235, which actually still makes it one of the lowest price GT3s on the market in all of the US right now. It's in Texas. So if you're interested, go to P Car Market and click either the buy it now or make him an offer. Make him an offer at 230. Heck, he might take it. It's a beautiful car. It's exactly the spec I want, but I'm holding off. I'm holding off for October because if I got to eat my own dog food here. I said to you guys that if this trend continues by October, we'll be pretty close to MSRP, if not just a little bit above it. I still believe that. There's these outliers, these crazy spec cars that people are willing to just pay a ridiculous amount of money for. But these are guys that, they're not in my they're not sitting in the same lane as the highway as I am. I'm not competing with these guys in normal life, and I'm not going to do so on an auction site either. So again, I'm going to wait. However, this was a good tip. I feel like, always you just double click to select the VIN number, right click and say search Google for this. And then you'll see it come up. Somebody else in Rendlist had been talking about it apparently. Now, guys, that is the long drawn out new update that I had for you. So really, what do we take away from this? Prices, I think, are actually kind of flattening out or actually a little bit on the rise at this point. That graph is kind of not doing a great job of showing it anymore, but you see how many reds we had here, and the only red we have in the last 5 is the one that had a little accident, but the rest of them are pretty healthy sales. So I think prices are actually back on the way up. But one thing I forgot to mention is if you go up here to Car Gurus, and by the way, not sponsored by any other stuff. I just use these tools. That's it. I go to Car Guru, I put in a nearby zip code, and then I basically say 22, 20, 23, and I do a radius of nationwide. And then I come down here and I select both GT3 categories. And as you can see, when I do that, I get 126 available cars. The last thing I do is I get rid of anything with like an accident. I basically hide vehicles with accident reports. Yeah, so there's quite a few cars out there, a couple of duplicates, so I don't really know what to think of that. I don't know if it's really 126. Sometimes the sponsored ones kind of come up more than once. But yeah, the average price of the listings is still pretty dang high. On the low end, you have this $240,000 one. And, on the high end, it's going to go, on the high end, it's going to be crazy. On the high end, $360,000 car. I don't know what this guy is thinking with a white car. It's a touring at least. So there's quite a bit of a inventory on the market, and this inventory has been pretty steady. I've seen it go as high as about 141, but and then as low as like 100 and I don't know 19 or something like that. But it fluctuates. Some of these cars are pretty old, like they've been on here and they haven't sold, or maybe they've sold, they just didn't update the listing or something like that. But there's a pretty good amount of inventory. Porsche is still making these cars. It's not a limited production run or anything like that. There are some, so the things that are going to affect the market in the coming months is Porsche's had several price increases across their entire product line. Those are going to affect used car prices, because if you wanted to get into a GT3, let's say you got a new allocation tomorrow, it's going to cost you more today than it would have last year. Anyway, we'd love to hear your comments. Thanks for all your comments on the last video. Want to hear what you have to say about this one, and where you think this market's going. If you think I missed something, I'd love to hear it. Let's go ahead and click that subscribe button. We'll see you on the next one.